Well, hello everyone, and welcome in to our premiere program for the night. Wow, we have been looking forward to this program, and we have our good friend Fritz Sringmeier. Wow, my goodness, what a man. He knows all about the deep root connections in the Watchtower concerning their agenda, what they are up to, how they exist, and what they plan on in the future. We have Spring going to be Fritz telling us all about that tonight. So we do have Fritz with us. Now listen, what Fritz talks about is things you're not going to hear anywhere else. Fritz has done his research. He's written a number of books, including The Bloodlines of the Illuminati. He claims Watchtower is in the Bloodlines through Russell. Russell is a name that shows up, and he's going to be telling us more about it tonight. So let's invite Fritz on right now. Hello, Fritz.
Hello, Rick.
Well, there you are. My goodness, I don't know. I'd love to give you a bigger introduction, but I don't know what to say. I mean, you're a man of caliber. You're a man that really knows what he's talking about, and I'm really interested in what you're going to be discussing tonight with the audience.
Thank you. Tonight, I will continue to help people understand the Watchtower Society. Lots of people have been traumatized by the Watchtower Society and are trying to figure out what happened to them. So I ask, why is it that children raised in the Watchtower organization, supposedly God's only organization, often end up like Naomi Campbell, a Playboy centerfold? What might be behind a photo of her in a cat pose? What might be behind her friend Coco Roca, also raised in the Watchtower organization, who is an international supermodel, posing with one eye covered? Well, later tonight, we're going to get some answers to this question about children raised in the organization. My grand finale tonight will be to explain trauma-based total mind control. This mind control was developed by the Illuminati, and the fact that the Watchtower programs children for them is further proof that the Watchtower Society is a front organization for generational Satanism who call themselves the Illuminated Ones, the Illuminati, okay? So now, to continue the thought that people need answers to what happened to them when they were associated with the Jehovah's Witnesses, I have my own story. You see, people, I was mystified how the Watchtower Society disfellowshipped me when I wasn't even a member. I didn't find an answer until several years later, when I was associated with Witness Incorporated, a Christian organization of missionaries who bring Jehovah's Witnesses to Christ. They had 2 libraries, both of which contained everything the Watchtower had ever put out. They showed me the book, sent out only to overseers. In the book, it said that if someone attended regularly, they were to be disciplined just like a member. I had no idea that by going to the Kingdom Hall on a regular basis, I had signed my life over to them. Tonight, I'm going to clear up some loose ends from our first show on 6 screens. And then I'll give some more history of the Watchtower Society. And then I'll explain the trauma-based mind control and the role the Watchtower Society plays in this.
Well, I just want to make a comment here too, Fritz, that what we'll do is we're going to have you do the segments. Now, we want to hold back on all questions. When Fritz is ready to answer questions, and he will, I know we had people calling in on the last program, say they're waiting for Fritz. He'll answer your questions, but there's going to be a certain time for it. So let Fritz speak. Everyone stay muted, please. And then at the end of the segment, when he wants to bring people in, we'll bring them in. He'll answer all the questions. We got about 3 hours to do it. So go ahead, Fritz. The floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm going to speak for approximately an hour, and then I'll turn it over to questions for the next 2 hours. So if you hang in there, you can get your questions answered. Now, I checked out the comments on our first show, and I noticed several controversies. So let's look at these. There's so many details to share. I'm going to have to use notes, okay? So bear with me. First, some doubted Charles Taze Russell's Masonic membership. Second, some felt I was inaccurately portraying Charles Taze Russell as poor before he began his new religion. Third, some felt I inaccurately portrayed what Russell's pyramid was all about. Well, before I deal with these controversies, I want to answer a question from the last show. Hopefully the caller will listen to this. She asked why her father, a Jehovah's Witness and Freemason, wore a carnation on his lapel. Here's the answer. A carnation on the lapel shows that the Freemason has the Masonic office of steward or grand steward. Now, a steward has several job responsibilities, including leading candidates around the lodge/temple, serving wine at meals, and being a backup for the deacon of the lodge. So, stewards often wear carnations on their lapel outside of the lodge to show their office. This would be the obvious answer, but there could be some others, not the obvious purposes. It could be a mind control trigger. I have firsthand experience seeing everyday items used as mind control triggers. Or perhaps he wanted to use the carnation's color to pass a message. A yellow carnation means I'm sorry or no. White means luck. Dark red, love. Green, homosexuality. And blue, moon dust. Okay, moving on. Let's deal with a loose end that I want to tie better. This is the controversy about Charles Taze Russell's Masonic membership. Russ Pine said he's seen Charles Taze Russell's membership record. Russ Pine was a disciple of the prominent Masonic Grand Master Manly P. Hall. Edith Starr Miller, who had lots of inside knowledge, said in her book, Occult Theocracy, published in 1931, that Charles Taze Russell was a Freemason. But the Watchtower Society denies Russell's Masonic membership. Some Scottish Rite lodges deny to the public that Russell was a Freemason. Bear in mind, Russell was York Rite, not Scottish Rite. So here we have a controversy about Charles Taze Russell's Masonic membership. Here on one hand, we have Russ Pine and Edith Starr Miller as witnesses to his York Rite membership. And then on the other hand, we have the testimony of the Watchtower Society and the Masonic lodges that he wasn't. So, which set of witnesses do we believe? Russ Pine and Edith Starr Miller, or the Watchtower and the Scottish Rite Mason? So let's look deeper at this. Masons have consistently lied about their history. Go figure. Leading modern Freemasons, and I can list some names, Mackey, A.S. McBridge, Melvin Johnson, and Delmore Dara, to name a few, all say that the older Masonic histories are lies and fiction. And then Masons have repeatedly lied about trivial thanks to me. So here are a couple stories along that line. I went to a Christian brother's home. His wife would bring flowers to our church, and it was obvious he was a Freemason. And on his coffee table was a Masonic magazine with Albert Pike's picture on it. I go, oh, Albert Pike, one of the leaders of Freemasonry. And he looks at me and he goes, what are you talking about? There was never any Mason named Albert Pike. I said, yes, he was the head of Freemasonry back in the 1800s. I said, no, you're way off. There was never any Albert Pike Freemason. So here he just blatantly lied to my face about something silly, because, I mean, there's a statue of Albert Pike in Washington, D.C. It's not a mystery that the man was the head of Freemasonry. And here he is just blatantly lying about it. Here's another story. So after I had published the book, The Watchtower and the Masons, I went to Kinko's. Kinko's is no longer in business. They sold out to FedEx, but at that time, Kinko's, this was early on in the 1990s, and I went up to the counter and I asked the man behind the counter if he would photocopy a page from my book, The Watchtower and Masons. He took the book and threw it in the garbage. And I said, take that book out of the garbage. Well, he said, I'm a Freemason, and we would never allow you, if you were a Freemason, to write something like that. He was angry. He was angry simply by looking at the cover of the book, the title, The Watchtower and the Masons. It infuriated him. And I've had other Masons infuriated too. So answer me this. Why, in 1990, when I came out with the book, The Watchtower and the Masons, did the cover of the book make Masons very angry? Why be so sensitive about linking Freemasonry to one more religion? After all, Freemasonry is extended into all kinds of religions and denominations. Final thought on the integrity of Freemasons. They have repeatedly covered up about the membership of certain religious leaders. Why won't they reveal certain leaders? Looks like there's a hidden agenda. Next, how reliable is the Watchtower Society about their own history? We know that in 1993, they put out a sanitized version of their history, Jehovah's Witnesses, Proclaimers of God's Kingdom. But how many know the society sent out people to buy up their old literature so they could destroy it? Dwayne Mignoni's books have repeatedly documented how the Watchtower Society has lied about their past. I don't even need to repeat all that. So I don't consider Freemasons and the Watchtower Society to be reliable witnesses about something they are sensitive about. You know what I mean? Yes, I knew that Russell had denied being a Freemason. I knew that before I wrote The Watchtower and the Masons. I will explain why Russell can't be trusted later on. But for now, I'll just mention that he said in a public talk that Freemasons often greeted him with various grips. Grips are handshakes, special handshakes. And he gripped them back just to play along. Well, folks, this reminds me of Bill Clinton saying, I didn't inhale. Rick, you know what had convinced me of Russell's bloodline being Illuminati before I met those Illuminati informants?
I don't know.
Well, let me tell you. Yeah, let me tell you. It took me putting together the puzzle pieces from 4 obscure old sources. These were 1850 census, John Russell's will, the Pittsburgh Directory of 1878 to 1879, and then this obscure book, Adelaide Nevin's book, The Social Mirror, a character sketch of the women of Pittsburgh and vicinity during the first century of the county's existence, copyright 1888, page 19. Here's what I found. Charles Taze Russell's stepmother, that is his wife's sister, was executor of John Russell's will. John Russell's mother was chosen out of all the hundreds of women to be the one to dance with the Marquis de Lafayette when he came to the USA in 1824. Who was Lafayette? He was a French aristocrat, an important Freemason, and an Illuminati member. He came to George Washington's army at age 19, was made a major general, and became an American hero of the American Revolution. When he came back in 1824, you can bet your last dollar that every woman around wanted to dance with him. But who got to dance with him? Who got to dance when he came to Philadelphia? It was a relationship to Charles Taze Russell. Boy, I felt like I hit the mother lode when I discovered that. Okay, moving on. The next controversy is that I inaccurately portrayed Charles Taze Russell's finances. So I put together a chronology because I thought if I went through a chronology, it would make more sense to the listeners. So Charles Taze Russell, he's born in 1852. In 1860, his mother died. And a few years later, in 1866, at 14 years old, Charles Taze Russell's formal schooling ended. Then 3 more years later, in 1869, he began associating with the Second Adventists. And that was a movement created by a British Freemason, William Miller. Then the next year, Russell becomes a regular participant in Second Adventist Bible study. And that same year, in 1870, I looked up in the census of Pittsburgh, and in the census of Pittsburgh, Ward 4, page 98, line 4, 5, and 6, it showed that Charles Taze Russell and his father were poor. They had no property. They boarded with people. They rented their store. Plus, his father had been paying off a debt to Thomas Burney. Okay? So, yet, in contradiction to this census, we can read a puff piece written almost a century later, a puff piece which smells like it was written by a Jehovah's Witness, in the June 1967 issue of the Pittsburgh Press, page 169, which says they lived above their store and then later sold his stores for $350,000. Okay, that's interesting. Maybe more comments on that later, but a couple years later, we see in 1872, the Adventist pastor George W. Stetson meets Russell. 1877, a few years later, Nelson H. Barber, and he's a Second Adventist writer. He co-wrote a book, 3 Worlds and the Harvest of This World, with Charles Taze Russell. The next year, in August of 1878, Barber and Russell realized they've got doctrinal differences. So did they immediately separate? No. But you'll see that coming. The next year, early next year, in March of 1879, Charles Taze Russell marries Maria Ackley. He's 27 years of age, and his dad marries Maria Ackley's sister. Yes, the father and son marry 2 sisters. And his wife, Charles Taze Russell's wife, is a hardcore socialist. Hopefully people out there know what hardcore socialists are. You know, like Black Lives Matter, the people that created Black Lives Matter. There's other people, but anyway, she was also educated, and that comes into the role here in a little bit. So just shortly after this, in May of 1879, Russell breaks with Barbara. Well, they'd had differences for a number of months. And then a few more months, in July 1879, Russell begins publishing Zion's Watchtower and Heralds of Christ's Presence. That's an interesting title because he was the first Zionist and he was pushing Zionism. So he named his magazine Zion's Watchtower. And his wife was ghostwriting his writings, as well as if he did write something, she would edit it. You have to remember, he didn't get much formal education. But he was a sharp guy, don't get me wrong, but he just didn't have the formal education she had. So shortly after that, 1881, it seems to me he's in obvious need of a source of help, an obvious source of help. And Zion's Watchtower and Tract Society begins with, check this out, a banker/philanthropist, William Henry Conley, as its president. Yeah, the first president of Watchtower was actually not Charles Stage Russell, it was William Henry Conley. And Conley provided his home for the memorial services for the Watchtower Bible students. Okay, so in 1882, Russell told his readers, and I quote, "A brother who has already contributed largely guarantees any debts incurred to the amount of 1,000 in excess of receipts." Do you hear that? As long as he saves his receipts, Charles Stage Russell can spend as much as he wants, and he will be reimbursed $1,000 more than he spent. Hello, world. So, 1883, now that he's being financed with a blank check, Russell closes his store. 1884, the Zion's Watchtower and Tract Society incorporates, with Charles Stage Russell becoming the corporation's first president. Conley goes his own way, Russell's finances get murky, and this is an interesting phenomenon because George Washington is considered our first president, but he really wasn't our first president. We had many presidents under the Article of Confederation. In fact, George Washington was our last president under the Articles of Confederation. He was our first president under the Constitution. And Charles Stage Russell is often referred to as the first president, but technically he wasn't. He wasn't the first president. Technically, he was the first president under the corporation. That's interesting. So anyway, he sold his store after he breaks with Barbara, after he marries, after he and Conley have differences. And I believe he sold it to free his attention to focus on his new religion. He sells it before publishing the Watchtower magazine and before incorporating. And from this point on, Rick, he lavishly spends millions of dollars each year, while meanwhile, at the same time of lavishly spending millions of dollars, he gets filthy rich, buys companies, silver and gold mines, and property. So Russell's wife divorced him in 1897. And Charles Stage Russell had kept her out of the loop on where his wealth was hid. In court, he lied and said he was penniless. A Reverend J.J. Ross investigated Russell's finances and confronted Charles Stage Russell with his lies there in court. And Russell had had to come clean about his hidden wealth. Ross then wrote about this court confrontation in 1920. One final thought on the early days. The Watchtower, January 1st, 1911, page 4, says, Jewish sources were providing the Watchtower with funds. In more modern times, you see the Rothschilds Kuhn-Lay Bank supply money to both the Mormons and the Watchtower Society. Finally, we see the Rockefellers Chase Manhattan and Morgan Guarantee Trust supply funds, as well as our State Department funneling them funds. Okay, the third controversy, that I misrepresented the pyramid. When I had access to everything the Watchtower had put out, I intently studied the period when Charles Taze Russell died and was buried. I noticed there were some contradictions. I can promise the listeners that several references in Watchtower material, perhaps reports, stated categorically that Charles Taze Russell was cremated after 3 days and the ashes laid under the pyramid. These reports were side documents, not Watchtower magazine. The souvenir report of the Bible Student Convention, January 1919, page 7 said that the rebar on the pyramid was barbed wire. Why would you use barbed wire for the rebar for the pyramid's foundation? Yeah. Anyway, by the way, the Watchtower Society sent off specially to get the pyramid's pink granite from a mountain in Texas, which is believed by the occult to be magical. Any old granite would not do. Well, Rick, I want to thank you and the listening audience for hanging in there with me. I know I'm giving lots of detail. Hopefully the listeners are not shell-shocked. If you've just left the Watchtower, this may be hard to digest. I hope you'll hang in there for the remainder of the show and call in if you want.
Wow, they're hanging in. I can see they're hanging in here, Fritz. I'm at the control panel up here in Massachusetts, and what I look for is retention. When you're running a network, that's what you want, is you want a retention rate. So the retention rate is very high. That means that people are retaining, they're listening in from the very beginning. So you're going fine. It doesn't look like anybody's been overwhelmed yet. So they're really absorbing this and getting a lot of good comments. So you go ahead and continue with what you're saying, Fritz. We love it.
Thank you. I wanted to discuss some Watchtower history before I seg into trauma-based mind control. Did you ever wonder why the Watchtower Society allowed booze and not beards? The answer is the next Watchtower president, Judge Joseph Rutherford. Most of Russell's Bible students left the Watchtower Society when Rutherford ran his despotic authoritarian rule. For example, he dissolved Russell's editorial committee, which was like Russell's brain. You might jokingly call his people Joe's witnesses. He imposed a theocratic government onto the backs of Joe's witnesses. Further, by forbidding his witnesses from marrying and childbearing, and then directing them to go door to door, he began creating a master race of janitors. Many highly qualified people over the next decades quit good jobs and replaced them with night janitor jobs to support their door-to-door work. Rutherford had been an attorney and felt he was above the law, even God's law. He had a live-in secretary, Bonnie Boyd. He had a nurse that traveled with him named Berta Peel. When I read Watchtower material from Rutherford's era, I noticed lots of pictures of nude or topless women in Watchtower material. It made sense knowing the judge's morals. He was not only power hungry, but he liked the fine life, including several mansions, most in the United States, one in Germany, and several 16-cylinder Packards and other expensive cars. Perhaps the most shocking thing about Rutherford, he channeled spirit and claimed that wicked angels worked off their sins by bringing him messages. Yeah. The Bible is clear that angels are fixed in their spiritual condition. So it's clear where his messages came from. Fallen angels, by his own admission. Nathan Knorr, his successor, called him Papa. Papa is a trauma-based mind-controlled term. So perhaps Knorr was under trauma-based mind control. By the way, there is a whole deeper level to this. When I investigated the world order, the elite, I wanted the facts to speak for themselves, rather than making the facts fit a preconceived idea. The Scottish and Jewish leadership in the world order is way out of proportion. The Scottish Sinclair bloodline is generationally the head of Freemason, is part of the Illuminati holy bloodline, and genealogically Jews. The head of the Illuminati's Priory of Zion is credited with devising the Scottish Rite of Freemason. The Priory of Zion protected the Illuminati's holy bloodline. You can read about that in my Bloodlines of the Illuminati book. The Jew Mose M. Hayes had the authority to go to the United States and begin the Scottish Rite. The Priory of Zion is mostly Jews. So when I examined the creation of the Scottish Rites, Sublime Grand Lodge of Perfection, that's the 33rd degree people, in Charleston, South Carolina, at least 4 of its founders were Jews, 2 Scots, 2 Irish, 2 Frenchmen, and 1 possible Englishman. So 6 of the 11 were either Scottish or Jewish. A good book to explore this deeper level is Holy Blood, Holy Grail. And while that book doesn't claim any connection to the Illuminati, it certainly gives their perspective, okay? The leadership at the Watchtower headquarters had a higher percentage of Scots and Jews than would randomly be expected. Rutherford is a Scottish surname from the border, and so is A.H. Macmillan, whose Watchtower power got Rutherford into the president position. Fast forward, Jack Barr was the member of the governing body who covered up Deborah Hines' sexual abuse at Bethel headquarters. Barr is a Scottish name from the border region, like Rutherford's family. The Scottish border area is just north of York, birthplace of the York Rite. The Russells, although originally Jews, also lived in Scotland before moving to Northern Ireland. So there's this whole deeper level to the Watchtower's origins. Okay? Dwayne Mediani.
Well said. Hey, well said, sir. Thank you.
Dwayne Mediani wrote a whole book on how the Jehovah's Witnesses have a higher mental illness rate than the national average. But why do they? This is my grand finale tonight. Trauma-based total mind control and its connection to the Watchtower Society and Jehovah's Witnesses. Hold on to your seats. I know some Jehovah's Witnesses who were subjected to this horrific mind control. Plus, as I talk, there will be someone out there suffering. I am going to point out Jehovah's Witnesses who appear to be candidates for my suspect list of those who survived the trauma-based mind control. I'm not mentioning names to disparage anyone. Believe me, victims of this mind control deserve sympathy and love. One of the saddest things, Rick, for the mind-controlled slave / survivors of this is that the programmers are so systematic in destroying everything of beauty and value in life. Everything conceivable that can be degraded will be. Listen to some of the things this mind control does. The slave must reorganize reality through identification with the aggressor, his Illuminati master. The programming will override the self. Black and white thinking is created by the program. Rick, you talked to me about one of your guests, a lady named Adela R. Force, who grew up in the Watchtower organization and is a multiple personality. What the system now calls dissociative identity disorder, or DID for short. For many years, it was called MPD, multiple personality disorder. I actually think the older name is more descriptive for lay people. Anyway, MPD is a result of trauma-based total mind control. This stuff had been secret for centuries, and I got the privilege to begin exposing it in 1992. There's a lot of disinformation out there about it, so I appreciated your introduction. So Rick, if you want to comment or play something from Adelie's interview, that's fine. What I have to say about trauma-based mind control may take about 30 more minutes. If you want to do or say something before I get started, feel welcome.
Well, we did have her on the program years ago. In fact, on 2 different programs, Fritz, and she really was a troubled woman that spoke up on our program concerning how she was really abused in the Watchtower. As a young girl, Adele was faced with double life, and she did not want to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses. But of course, when you're a young person, your family is going to force you into being a witness. And so Adele claims on the program that she came on our 6 screens, she claims that what happened with her was she was trying to live this double life, and it really upset her balance, so to speak. She had to kind of fake who she was at times. And I can see how that could happen. You know, it's very hard. We had a woman on the program just earlier too. Her name was Kim, and she said that she was a PMO. That's a person that's physically in, mentally out. And when you're a PMO, you have to live a double life. You have to go to the Watchtower and be with all the people physically there, but mentally you're out. So this can really create some strain on your mental capacity. And so the woman earlier was saying that she left because she just couldn't take it anymore. So Adele, who was on years ago here on the 6 screens, talked about she had this multiple personality. And that was really developed from her living 2 lives. You know, one life was in the Watchtower, one life was out. So she developed this multiple. Now, I don't know if you have any more insight on why this happens, but that may be the reason. But maybe you have some other thoughts, Fritz, but I'd like to hear them.
Yes, I understand in depth. And a lot of people, a lot of the victims of the mind control don't understand really what's happened to them, and they don't understand their own mind. But this is such a deep subject. But this total mind control is supposed to be totally undetectable. It's supposed to be totally undetectable even to the person being controlled. However, it's not totally undetectable. There are clues. And the long list of clues to spot it are given on various pages in my Deeper Insights book in part 2. This Deeper Insights book was one of 3 major books I wrote exposing countless details of the mind control. The other books were the formula book and a guidebook, They Know Not What They Do. Hopefully, people will begin to understand and see what the Watchtower Society has done for the Illuminati and its agency. For the benefit of those listeners who haven't read my book, let me briefly explain what is done or how this total mind control is achieved. First, this trauma-based total mind control is easily 1,000,000 times stronger than what the uninformed person thinks of when they hear the term mind control. It uses every technique of mind control ever devised, even methods the public doesn't know about. It isn't one technique, but a complex recipe of many techniques and sciences. It's designed so that if one method fails, then there are several others to fill the gap and ensure compliance. The foundation of trauma-based mind control is trauma. A baby around 18 months is taken and traumatized beyond your imagination. The baby's mind is shattered into many dissociative pieces, which are then locked in place and programmed. What the programmer gets is a programmed multiple personality with a very good front personality to front the system. The front personalities will be less programmed than deeper alters. Alters are different personalities, by the way. As I said, multiple methods are used. Hypnosis, drugs, implants, deceit and fiction, peer pressure, and other external controls like blackmail, oaths and vows, structured MPD worlds, trauma, torture, satanic ritual abuse, stun gun, and alters mask as angels. So in Prince, you know, Prince Rogers Nelson, the great hip hop musician and Jehovah's Witness member, that an angel told him he'd stop being epileptic. That is exactly the kind of thing the programmers do. The victims wrap their minds around the programming themes and are fixated on them. Some of the common programming themes are Alice in Wonderland, The Wizard of Oz, and Star Trek. So when the Jehovah's Witness musician, George Benson, makes a song entitled White Rabbit, that well may be a clue of mind control. The White Rabbit is the programmer or leader, especially internally in the mind. When Jehovah's Witness musician Van Morrison makes a song, Moon Dance, that may be related to rituals connected to programming. When Jehovah's Witness musician Hugh Piano Smith makes a song, Just a Lonely Clown, that may well be reflecting programming. By the way, Van Morrison's band was the Monarchs, and Hank Markham's band, the Shadows. Anyone familiar with the Book of Shadows, also connected to programming? If that isn't enough, Van Morrison toured U.S. military bases in Europe, and was part of MI6 British intelligence's first music invasion in the 1960s to alter American culture, which it did. The shows on U.S. bases are quite controlled and well stocked with mind-controlled slaves. For instance, and I know people are going to be shocked by this. I'm sorry, I'm just stating facts. This example that I'm going to give, Bob Hope, who also worked for MI6 and has been a slave handler, has used lots of program multiples in his shows. So Jehovah's Witness actress Teresa Graves, in 1969, when she was about 21 years of age, toured with Bob Hope and his USO shows. Later, during the year that she was baptized into the Watchtower Society, she played a vampire named Countess Vampira in the movie Vampire. I notice that some actors and actresses, who I know for sure are program multiples, end up in occult and horror movies. Just saying, it might be a clue. And George Benson, Hugh Piano Smith, and Van Morrison, all of them were child prodigy. The programmers have ways of enhancing talent. Indeed, one of the ways that they quiet parents is they tell them they are going to make a success of their child. They just neglect to tell the parents it will involve a lifetime of torture and abuse. One of the standard abuses is to constantly molest the child. The worse the abuse, the better for the handlers. You know, Rick, this may be getting difficult for the uninformed to digest. Let's just explain that across the board, artists and people made popular by the system need to be mind controlled and or take an oath to Satan. People in the industry have told me that, and I've observed it. So there's been quite a few Jehovah's Witnesses who've become great and famous artists. Sad to say, but they should all be suspected of being victims of trauma-based mind control and suspected of being a programmed multiple. As I get deeper into studying this horrific mind control, I realized essentially all the big musical hits, all the hits over the radio, were being used one way or the other for trauma-based mind control. Now, returning to the Watchtower Society.
Well, let me step in here for a second. Fritz. No doubt, everyone listening into the program tonight, you know, I lay in bed at night. Many times I can't sleep. I'm wondering what the glue is. Well, what really keeps witnesses in this? I mean, we can see how false it is. We can see the terrible corruption in the Watchtower. But you say to yourself, well, what is it? What keeps the people going? What keeps them so loyal to the Watchtower? So, you know, there's got to be some type of mechanism. You call it trauma-based mind control, or some type of a hypnotic spell, or whatever you would want to attach to that. There is something that's odd, something that keeps these people going without even questioning. That is totally amazing. That defies reasoning. It really does. It's not reasonable to stay with something that is so false and corrupt. But that's why I do believe that there is a type of mind control. And I'm glad you're explaining it to us tonight.
Hey, Rick.
Jeff, hold on one second. Yeah, Jeff, listen, I'm going to tell this man once again, Jeff, if you pop in here one more time, I'm going to have to ban you. This is not the time to ask questions.
Okay. No,
okay, go ahead.
Okay, so following up on your statement, there is a very clever low-grade mind control that's done across the board on members. And you'll watch this being done when they do the Watchtower studies. But what I'm talking about, the trauma-based mind control, is something far more heinous, something far more controlling, but it helps. It's sort of like the backbone of why certain members stay in there, including the abusers, because the abusers know that they're going to be protected. So returning to the Watchtower Society, some of the trauma-based mind control was actually done at Bethel headquarters, and Enochian language was part of the program. Imagine that. The Watchtowers have Enochian magic used by the Watchtower Society in their trauma-based mind control program. It's really sick. The headquarters people also have used other places, like Andros Island in the Bahamas, for satanic ritual abuse rituals. Satanic ritual abuse is also some of the traumas the victim must participate in. So I developed a friendship with a man who had grown up a Jehovah's Witness in the Lake Tahoe area. He spent hours detailing all the program multiples in the kingdom halls of the area. So this craziness is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. So the problem is systemic for the Watchtower Society. They have promoted child molestation because it helps keep the victims in a compliant, dissociative state. They cover it up as they're part of this vast network of programming locations. They're not the only ones. The major programming fronts each have their own specialized themes and codes for their program. Other fronts with their own special coding themes include the Catholic/Jesuits, the Mormons, the Charismatic movement, and then your opposite groups, the OTO, Church of Set, and Church of Satan. So occasionally a Jehovah's Witness leaves and goes to the Charismatic movement. And this is something that you were talking about in the previous show. You know, you have to watch where you go. You can jump from the fire into the frying pan. So occasionally a Jehovah's Witness leaves and goes to the Charismatic movement. Well, if he's programmed, he's just switching from one trauma-based mind control environment to another. This stuff is all around. Once our eyes are opened, you'll see it. You'll see it everywhere. The Simpsons cartoon has a show where they say, follow the yellow brick road, which is code for follow the program. The head of the CIA, Stansfield Turner, goes before a Senate hearing, August 3rd, 1977, public record, and admits the CIA was involved with mind control. With a lot of help, he says, 44 medical colleges and 80 American institutions are participating, along with 185 scientists. Hello? Anyone listening? The Awake magazine of November 8, 1992, page 6, says, and I quote, the rock star Prince sang the praises of brother-sister incest, end quote. The victims of this mind control are very confused sexually. Roseanne Barr, there's that Scottish name again. As I said, Roseanne Barr, famous actress, has somehow survived speaking out. She's a program multiple, and I heard her say once, she's been screwed every imaginable way. So Prince was perhaps the greatest musician, yet he grappled with depression. Why? Well, it's a symptom of being a mind-controlled slave. And Prince's androgynous persona was widely noticed. Androgyny is a big subject. C.T. Russell believed that the ultimate spiritual state was androgynous. Charles Taze Russell wrote, and I quote, Enoch may be considered as representative of the golden age of androgynous men, when men are Christ-like, end quote. Androgynous bisexual men are Christ-like, according to Russell. I bumped into this kind of statement in Watchtower literature quite a few times during Russell's reign. I've also seen some Masons who think like this. This subject is getting lots of play in our culture today. The best example of a victim of Watchtower Society trauma-based mind control is Michael Jackson and his sisters Janet and LaToya. I'll probably get lots of hate for exposing them. I don't do this to diss Michael. I do it to expose the evil Watchtower Society, which is a front for generational Satanism, also known as the Illuminati. I probably pushed hard enough tonight to get the truth out, and should just stop and take questions. I'm sorry the truth is so brutal, but I tell you what, people like Deborah Hines are probably applauding that the reality they endured is being exposed. It's time the tables were turned on the abusers. That concludes my formal presentation. I'm ready for questions now, Rick.
Well, that's interesting. You bring up Deborah Hines too. She has been on the program before, and we're trying to get her on again. But anyways, I'm glad you're with us, audience, and you've been listening to Fritz, and he has so many things that he has discussed here tonight. So why don't you do this? You have some questions for Fritz? I know you do. So why don't you come in and ask Fritz a question? All you have to do is hit *6, and Fritz can answer any question you want. I mean, this is, deep material. Some of the stuff you might never have heard before, but all of us have been under some type of mind control. Go ahead. You're on with us. Go ahead. Say hello to Fritz.
Hi. Hello. Just quickly, Rick. Fritz, I have a quick question for you. I did download the Cult Theocracy book, and on it says that the Watchtower parent organization is called Benign Brides or something like that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that organization?
Rick, could you rephrase his question, please? I couldn't catch it.
I kind of missed it a little bit myself.
I'm sorry.
Miguel, go ahead, come back on and say it again. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. My microphone is really bad. So when I got the book of Cult Theocracy, on that book it says that the parent organization of the Watchtower was the Benign Brides or Benign Brides or something like that.
Yeah, Benign
So I
Brides.
wonder if you could. Okay, could you tell us a bit more about that? Thank you, Fritz.
Yes, the Benign Brides started out to be a Jewish form of Freemasonry. It was a lodge system. And then after a few years, they decided to discard all the mummery, all the ritual, and it still is a fraternal organization. And they have sponsored the Anti-Defamation League, which is a violent, radical group which has murdered people and blown things up. So they have a radical side to them. But yes, they are a lodge system for Jews. Next question.
Go ahead, you're on with us. Say hello to Fritz. *6.
I have a question.
Sure.
There. Hello.
Yes.
Hi. Hi. I enjoyed your program. Sorry to say I haven't read your book. But putting the puzzle together by listening to different ones who have looked into all this. But last week, I remember it was going to be brought out that what is going on right now with as a business or as a corporation, as a real estate, business behind the scenes. I think you were going to explain it, and if you did, I'm sorry I missed it, but you were going to bring out what is going on with them as far as how are they manipulating things in such a way to downsize intentionally, or are they doing that? And then is it so that they can eventually liquidate all the properties, or do you have any idea what is actually going on right now? It's very confusing because they are seemingly purposely putting out a lot of confusion in a lot of ways, right on the broadcast and the way things that they say, and things are twisted around. I'm just wondering, do you know anything about what they're actually doing right now? Thank you.
Well, as I said last time I was on, which was March 26th, the Illuminati created a number of front organizations. Some of these front organizations were religions. And I address specifically two prominent ones that started about the same time that received their funding from the Rothschilds, and that was the Mormons, which is the LDS form of Mormons, and the Watchtower Society. And those organizations have had purposes. And I talked about the various purposes over the years that the Watchtower Society served. One of them was to destroy nationalism, because the elite wanted to, they're globalist, they want a one world government. They want to get rid of national boundaries. Another one was to alarm everybody in the world that there's going to be this apocalypse. And the reason why is the Illuminati, in their arrogance and pride, want to recreate the four horsemen of the apocalypse. They want to create all that drama that Revelation warns us about. Well, the Jehovah's Witnesses have carried out that assignment very well. In 2021, they announced through different means, publicly announced, that the New World Order had begun. So now they don't need these front organizations, because I've been told by the Illuminati kingpins themselves that they are going to get rid of all of these religions except for two Christian religions. That's the Catholic Church and the Church of England, which they tightly control both of those. And I have come out with extensive lists of both Vatican officials that are Freemasons and Church of England officials who are Freemasons. So the Freemasonry is like the glove on the Illuminati hand. It's another organization that the Illuminati work through. And if you are a young man in the Illuminati, they want you to go through Freemasonry because they will teach you a ritual system. It's a training school for the young men. So anyway, they want to get rid of these fronts. They don't need them anymore. So they're going to allow these fronts to fade. Now, if you look worldwide, you will notice a whole number of countries, like England, for instance, and Rick can verify this, a whole number of countries are beginning to get really tired legally of the Watchtower Society. And they're starting to shut them down. Well, the Illuminati could come in and protect their darling, their fuck organization, but they're not. They're not going to blackmail judges to protect the Watchtower Society. Why? Because they don't need it anymore. You see what I mean? And the leaders of the Watchtower Society know their days are numbered. So you don't see the effort put in by them to maintain their false religion. They're letting it go. And that's why I said they're grabbing their money and running. They have sold billions of dollars. I mean, you can go on, you can check for yourself and go online and see what they got for all those different buildings in the Columbia Heights in Brooklyn. They have been selling Kingdom Hall. Pardon me? We're talking about hundreds of billions. They've been selling off this stuff, and who knows where it's going. Like I said last program, they can't take it with them. But I tell you what, there's a lot of arrogant, powerful people that seem to act like they're going to take it with them, and they can't. But that's what's happening is their days are numbered, and that's why you see Deborah Hines getting a little play in the courts. Our court system are corrupt, and initially the court system just gave her a cold shoulder, but she persevered, and finally she got through. And why did she get through? It's because the Illuminati's not going to put in the effort to protect their organization like they used to. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Fritz, this is Rick.
So would you say that?
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Christine.
Would you say along with that, that's why their policies are getting crazy inside? They're scaring people so much that people are shunning more and they're cutting each other off. I mean, people are just being and being so scared. You know, they're inside. And I talked to a circuit overseer's wife. She came to my door, and when I looked her straight in the eye, I mean, she looked scared.
Yes.
She just seemed very full of anxiety. And I just said to her, you know, I used to be a witness, and that started, you know, she started asking questions. And I didn't come down on her with, you know, oh, this and that and this and the CSA. And I didn't do that with her. I just followed her questions. And she said, well, how long have you been out? Or how long, you know, and I told her how long I was in and how long I've been out. And she was just, I looked her in the eye and I said, she'd asked me, well, are you going to come back? Have you thought about coming back? And I looked her straight in the eye and I said, no. I said, I can't come back. I said, there's too much corruption in the organization. And I'm not going to, you know, I told her, I know you're not allowed to look at it. But I could tell she was just, you know, you could just look in her eyes and, you know, she just went into a little bit of a bubble. Like you could tell she just closed off to me because maybe she thought I was going to bombard her, but I didn't, because they're just barely in there. I think the people in there are just like, they're so nervous. Like anything they do or say is going to get picked on. And, you know, if anything's found out that you've looked on the internet or anything, if you say anything in there. So my thought is this intentional, why they're coming out with lots of stricter rules, you know, or because like
okay, what was your name, ma'am? What was your name? Christine. Okay, Christine. So Christine, an analogy to what's going on now with the Watchtower Society is what happened in Nazi Germany in 1945. When Nazi Germany was collapsing, they started making all kinds of draconian rules. And the German people were scared. They're scared to do anything. because at the slightest thing they were going to be disciplined. And what were the elite doing? The Nazi elite? They were running and trying to escape with their loot. You know, this is what you're seeing right now. The building is collapsing, and so they're just getting draconian. It's getting crazy, and people are seeing the Watchtower headquarters or the people string pullers are seeing what they can sell off, and I don't know what they're going to do with it. I don't have an insider telling me what they're doing with all of this money. Maybe Rick knows better. I know that they've invested in a lot of stock, but I have to imagine that they're using it in other ways too. But that's what's happening.
Well, Fritz,
would you say that the money is going to the Illuminati? It's going up for the new world. It's going to support the new world order coming in. Would you say they have a part in financing the new world order?
No, the Illuminati don't need their money. The Illuminati are the people that have the controls to create money, like the leaders of the Federal Reserve, the World Bank, the IMF. Those leaders, the people that create money, and they have all the money that they want. Those are Illuminati. I know they're Illuminati members, and I've been exposing them for years. They don't need the Watchtower's money.
Okay. How long before you think they're gonna pretty much shut down most of the Watchtower and the other groups that are front runners? Are they planning to completely get rid of them, or you don't know?
I don't know the exact timetable, and if I did, when I've known the timetable in the past, events and circumstances have changed their timetable. We got a reprieve here. We got a 21-year reprieve. They were supposed to have gotten done what they got done by 2021. They were supposed to have gotten that done in the year 2000. So they were 21 years off schedule. So I don't even like giving dates because I'm at the mercy of events. But I would expect by 2050 that you're going to see a large share of these religions and Christian denominations gone.
Okay.
Well, Fritz, this is Rick Farron. I have to say, I'm not even going to go to 2050. Thank you, Christine. I'm not going to go to 2050. I mean, these guys right now, Fritz, they have got so many problems. They are in deep doo-doo. Yeah, I mean, we've got, you mentioned earlier that now all of a sudden we have governments that aren't sticking up for the Watchtower. The Illuminati said, see you later on that. But just some of the countries that right now are investigating the witnesses. We've got Sweden. We got Belgium. We got Japan. We've got Denmark. We got Norway. We got England. We got Canada. And of course, they're banned in Russia. And I'll tell you what, Fritz, I don't know if they can even go to 2050. They're tanking very fast. I mean, I'm not refuting what you're saying, but this organization really, I feel it's dead. It just hasn't fallen over yet. Seriously, they have money.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but if I'm publicly answering something, I need to be conservative.
Yeah. Well, I'm willing to go on the line and say I don't think these guys are going to fight in chance for 5 or 6 years. To be quite frank, I mean, that's the way. Just examining what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower, Fritz. These guys, I was out in front of the Kingdom Hall Tuesday night. We do a protest. I put my boots on the ground, as we say. They had 30% less people there than the year before. I get
Wow.
people calling into me at the 6 screens here and writing me, and we're looking at. I'm willing to go on the record that the memorial really has got a 30% decrease this year from last year. But the Watchtower, they can cook the
Wow.
numbers, so we can't believe what they say. But just observing what people have
Right.
been sending me, so we see a real. And here's the biggest issue, Fritz. The biggest issue the Watchtower is faced with right now is the baby boomers certainly make up all the people writing to me this week. Rick, I went to the memorial, and the only one I saw in there really was baby boomers. There were no Gen X's, no millennials. So no one's stepping up. They're having a hard time getting people to come forward, men especially, and become ministerial servants and elders. So they're really doomed. The baby boomers are going to die, Fritz. You're a baby boomer.
Yeah.
I'm a baby boomer, and
Yeah.
we're not gonna go on forever. But when we're gone, they got nobody else. We're the last really adherents to the Watchtower, even though you and I are out. But I'm saying that collectively for people that are still in, they are baby boomers for the most part. So I don't see where they can go much more. People are waking up, they're smelling the coffee, and all these countries coming down on them. That's not even to bring into play the states. We have a number of states here in the United States that are coming down on the witnesses. Yeah, so it's all good. Yeah.
Hey, Rick.
Good point, Rick. Good point.
Yeah. Jeff, go ahead and I'll keep it.
Yeah,
Let's stay on topic here. So go ahead.
Yes, sir. This guy is very well spoken.
Well, yeah, he is. Yeah.
He's in tune with what you're saying and what the topic is. So that's all I can say, folks.
Well, I'm glad you're in agreement, Jeff. I'm glad you're in agreement. Now, we do have area code 860. Did you have something to say to Fritz? You're on with us. Go ahead.
Well, I think that might be me, Rick. That's Deborah. I was the one who asked the question last week about my dad and the carnations.
Oh, did you hear the answer?
Yes, I did. Thank you very much, Fritz. Thank you. Although I have so many other questions, and I know, you're never going to be able to get into this in one night, but I wanted to thank you.
Thank you.
But the one point that I don't think that I made last week when I spoke with you was that there were a few brothers in the Kingdom Hall. I think I mentioned my dad would give that handshake to. Now, some people call it a special handshake or whatever you might call it.
Agreed.
So I know that there were other brothers in the Kingdom Hall who were also Masonic members.
Right.
And I can visualize them in my head because I was just a kid at the time. And like I said, shortly after, I must have been about 9 or 10 years old. Shortly after that time, I must have been about 13 or 14. And like I said, the brothers had caved him. Now, my dad was baptized as a Baptist or a Catholic. I'm not sure. And they confronted him about his baptism. And they wanted him to get baptized as a Jehovah's Witness. And he said, no, I was already baptized. I was already immersed. Once you're baptized, that was it. He was one of these old-fashioned men. When you're submersed in the water, you're baptized. They accepted that from him. And when they finally put a stop to, I say him being a member of the Masonic, I think it was nationwide or whatever at that point. Then was within a year, he had the Bible study in our home. Now, I don't know. I'm just trying to put all these pieces together about the Masonics, the Jehovah's Witnesses, how much these brothers and members were exposed, how they couldn't be exposed. I mean, if they knew that he was a member of a Masonic, and other brothers were too, I know they were because I saw how my father related to them. And to have a Bible study in our home every week on Tuesday night, I mean, knowing that he wasn't baptized in a Jehovah's Witness, but they accepted that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. So I guess jumping in here, Deborah, if people understand the spiritual ramifications of Freemasonry, and I don't know if I really want to get into that, except basically say weird spirits are associated with their temples, and yet the Watchtower Society from the very beginning had no scruples using Masonic temples and Masonic lodges for the meetings, even memorial services. That shows a total lack of spiritual discernment.
Exactly. I'm 67. I'm going to be 68 years old, and I'm just now putting some of these pieces together. And I want to thank you so much. I mean,
Thank you.
Really, it's just like I said last week, it's a lot of repressed memories that are coming to fold. And it's like, wow, it's really, it's so enlightening. I mean, it's not a good thing my dad was involved in Masonry and Jehovah's Witness. But
too cool.
yeah, and it's like they're so intertwined because they knew these people were involved. They didn't put a stop to it. They just put a stop to them publicly doing what they were doing, like the handshake. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, like Charles Taze Russell, like Charles Taze Russell, repeatedly shaking all these Freemasons' hands with these Masonic grips wherever he went, and then saying, "Oh, I was just doing it to please them. You know, I was just playing around." Well, I tell you what, I wouldn't even know how to do the lion's paw or all these other Masonic grips.
No, I wouldn't either. But, you know, if I hadn't seen it firsthand, like the box full of stuff, the lambskin, the apron, I mean, I wouldn't have known about that stuff. I mean, who would have?
Yeah.
You know, the creations every week. And thank you so much for that, because now he always came home with a white one or a yellow one.
Oh, okay.
Gave them to my sister. But it was
okay.
Like the ring, the candles, and what have you. But, yeah, no, I want to thank you so much for addressing that for me. I mean, it was a small thing, but no, still, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I'll let you go.
Thanks, Deborah.
Well, Fritz, my goodness gracious, we do have more people want to come in and talk to you, so we're going to give them a shot here to do it. But I just wanted to bring up something here that has always been very, very controversial. Did so many witnesses that when they leave the organization and they hear about Freemasonry and Watchtower's founder, Charles Taze Russell, being involved with Freemasonry, many just totally discount it. And then there's a group of people, I'd say it's 50-50. I'd say 50% of the people leaving the witnesses believe that Russell was a Mason, 50% don't. But the only thing I can attribute that to, now, if you're a Christian person, we have a tendency to believe that Freemasonry was involved with Charles Taze Russell. And for some odd reason, it seems like people that don't have that Christian flavor, when they leave the Watchtower, they don't want to be Christians. They totally deny it. So there seems to be a camp that split. The camp that split is the Christians believe that he was connected with the Masonry, and the non-Christians don't. And the only thing I can really...
Hey, Rick.
Oh, hold on one second. Let me finish my thought, okay? Let me finish my thought. So we have that we have a camp out there that believes in the Freemasonry, with Charles Taze Russell, and that is the Christians. And the reason is because occultism. We know Freemasonry is steeped in the occult. And, you know, if a person is not a Christian, they don't believe in the occult. They don't believe in the devil. So it's very hard for them to connect with Freemasonry. Is there a correlation there, Fritz? Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So let me talk about things that have happened to me. So I used to go to Kinko's at night because if I worked after midnight, I would get a special price. And people would come up behind me and they would look at my material. And a number of times I saw people see the word satanic ritual abuse, and they would get angry and say, "Oh, that's just your opinion. There's no such thing as satanic ritual abuse." And they would see something about evil or sin, and they don't believe in evil or sin, so they would crawl all over me for saying, well, that was sinful, or that was evil, or that person, you know, you're right. They have no moral compass. And so because they have no moral compass, they could care less about these things. Yeah, exactly. You're right on track.
Well, why is it, Fritz? Let me ask you this. Why is it that so many witnesses leaving become ex-witnesses? You tell me, why do they have such a big hang-up with Charles Taze Russell being a Mason? Why is it they can't come to grips with that? I mean, you have stated on here numerous reasons why he was a Mason, but why is it they want to just head in the opposite direction? What's your feelings on that?
Well, I bumped into this a lot. It goes back to what you just said, how people view the world and they don't care about these things. And because they don't care about it, they don't want to hear anything about it. They just don't want to give any. They just want to put their head in the sand. And, you know, putting your head in the sand is not a good survival tactic. You're right. I could talk about different times when I have talked with people who had relatives that were Freemasons and how some of them reacted, you know, how angry they would get because they felt like I was attacking these good people. Don't bother me with the facts, you know. They just want to believe what they want to believe and go on. And you see that in a lot of ways. When I was with Witness Incorporated, John Warren would call up Christian churches and he would tell them, he would say, we will come in for free and train your people how to deal with the Jehovah's Witnesses. And we can do that. We have the proof. We are experts at doing this. Would you like us to come in? And a lot of Christian churches said, hey, the Jehovah's Witnesses are Christians. Get out of our face. We don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah,
pretty shocking.
Well, it is shocking, and it's always amazed me, Fritz. Why this big hoop-de-dar? And no, he was not a Mason. Yes, he was a Mason. It seems to be a big battle. I mean, it's not going to really, you know, make too much of a difference. But what it does, at least for those that believe he was a Mason, it gives more insight to the esoteric, to the secretive ways of the Watchtower. I mean, we know Skull and Bones. We know all of these esoteric societies. For the most part, these people were involved in Freemasonry. So why is it that the witnesses that don't believe in his connection to Masonry have such a hang-up with it? I mean, golly sakes, they are an esoteric organization. They're not really open. Very few people know too much, not too much about them. So that's always amazed me. You know, I mean, people get in big battle royal over the whole thing. It's crazy.
Right. So back in, I think it was 1990, I decided to take an entire year's worth of Watchtower literature everything that they had put out that year. And I went page by page, and I marked down when they attacked Christianity and when they attacked other religions. And they only tangentially said something like, well, you know, Buddhism isn't good or anything like that. But Christianity, they were exposing Christian clergy left and right. They were just hammering away that Christianity is evil. Well, if you know, if you have a global view on what's happening, you will realize that there are a lot of corrupt Muslim clergy. There are a lot of corrupt Buddhist clergy. There are a lot of corrupt Hindu leaders, Hindu gurus. You know, corruption is not just in Christendom, but if you read Watchtower material, that's all you're going to be exposed to. So these people that come out of the Watchtower Society, they've been soured to the only answer that's out there, which is Jesus Christ or Yeshua HaMashiach, who I use his actual name. You know, they've been soured. And that's sad. They've had that stolen. That's one of the reasons why this organization is so dangerous, is that they steal all the answers from people. So you sit there at the memorial service and watch the elements be passed and don't partake. You know, that's exactly what they do. They separate you from Christ.
Well, that's I'm with you. I'm on the same train. So let's see what train other people are on here. So why don't you speak up? Why don't we come in and say hello to Fritz? Go ahead.
Hey,
Go ahead and hello. How you doing?
Yeah.
Jeff, hold on one second. Jeff, we have to give Jeff. I'm gonna ban you right now. You know, I can't have you keep coming in because we have a lot of other people who want to speak up. And you keep speaking up before them.
Sorry.
So we have to ban you. Wait, one more time, and you're going to be banned. I'll call you when I want you to come in. I'll shout out your area code. Please do not come in unless I do that. Okay? Please obey this because this is a problem. We want to let people. So many people want to speak up. We cannot have that happen. Okay, we got to 906. Go ahead, 906. Come on. You're with us.
Hey, Rick. I was what you were saying is it depends on how people wake up in the Watchtower or when they're leaving and as their research. Some of us that really dove in just to try to prove, try to find what was that underlining. I don't know I'm trying to think of the word to use. You knew something was wrong with the organization, but you couldn't put your finger on it. And for me particularly, I needed to know. I needed to know why I felt like this, because you know, as we were all programmed, as if you have doubts, those are of Satan, right? And so I knew if I was going to leave, I need to know whether this was the truth or not, or if it was an issue with me, myself. And so when you start diving in and going back from the beginning of Charles H. Russell and you move your way forward to your current, then you start to discover all these wows and craziness. When you discover Russell was into the Pyramid of Giza, why was he into the Pyramid of Giza? That takes you down a whole nother rabbit trail. And then you look at his tombstone, you know, or the next to whatever was next to his tombstone, the pyramid, you know, to say that he was either fascinated with the Masons or he was. I tend to believe he was, but I had a hard time finding proof of where they were saying, I think some places I looked, there was something in the Scottish Mason paperwork or something, in Scotland or something, and some said it was over here, it was over there. I never saw actual paper with proof he was on it, but at the same time, why was he so fascinated with with Masonry if he wasn't one himself. Because I think there's even a talk where he greets them as his brothers in Christ or something like that. It's like a old audio clip that I listened to years ago on the internet. But I think it's just a lot of XJWs leave for different reasons, and they never really do their homework to find out what was their true history. They just either were shunned or they felt a lack of love or whatever. And I think the more that you can dive into that history, especially when you were born and raised that way, you can truly walk away with a peace of mind and understand, okay, this is why I felt this way throughout my life. This makes sense now because I was in a cult, you know? And so anyway, I hope that sheds some light or makes some sense, Rick.
Well, can I make a comment here? So where it comes in, where it's important, where this information is important, is that we're looking at a structure, an organizational structure. And if it has a bad foundation, then it's a bad structure. People, you know, it's like Christ said, you know, you can't build on sand, you have to build on the solid rock. And he says he's the rock. He's the actual cornerstone. So take, for instance, one issue, which a lot of people are totally unaware of. But Russell believed that God lived in the Pleiades on Halcyon. And I have seen, in doing the research on the Watchtower Society, I have seen somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 20 different Watchtower pages where they promulgate this over the years. They still were promulgating it up until 1951. That you know, that's pretty recent, 1951. They still believed, the Watchtower Society still was put out that God lived in the Pleiades on Halcyon. Okay, well, if you look at Watchtower material since then, they have never repudiated that. They've never said, well, we were wrong, but we don't believe that way anymore. The point I'm making is we're looking at a bad foundation. And that helps explain why everything is so off base.
No, it makes total sense. That's why, see, if you think about it, different generations come in different times, and look at how many of us never knew. Like, so I was born in April 1972. So my parents just got baptized right before I was born. I don't know how, but I never knew about Stay Alive till 75 until I started doing research, trying to figure out what was wrong with me, spiritually, why am I the black sheep of the family, you know? And then you start stumbling across these other things, such as 75, and then you learn about the Pyramid of Giza and Russell's tombstone and whatnot. That just blows your mind. But that's where the Watchtower, especially I think when they got rid of the CD-ROM and were having everybody come to jw.org, you know, they're deleting stuff, hiding stuff. And so the new generation of people coming in, unless somebody just happens to come and starts talking about it, would have no clue about 75, would have no clue about Russell and the pyramid and whatnot, because even the Kingdom Hall started getting rid of the older publications out of their libraries. So they've done a really good job in some ways of really covering up their stuff, but it's thankfully you can still find it if you're willing to look.
In 19.
Hello.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, we've got some more callers coming in for you, Fritz. Thank you, Daniel, out of Michigan. So let's go to we've got 304, area code 304. Come on.
Yeah, Rick, Kurt, hello. Thank you for taking my call. Fritz, your program is very good. I wanted to make one quick comment about the Pallades. You probably already know this, but the SDA Church came up with that first, and some of the SDA still believe that God's throne is in Pallades. And so I thought I'd mention that to you. I assume that's where Russell got that from. But thank you, Fritz. It's a very good program.
Thank you.
Okay, who's
Hello.
go ahead, you're with us.
Hi, Mr. Sringmeier.
Hi.
Hi, this is Kimmy from Oregon.
Oh,
I
Kimmy?
have some questions. Yeah, you can call me Kim. I called in earlier tonight for the first time, and I had emailed you because I had a couple questions, but I was wondering if you wouldn't mind answering a question about Freemasonry in general and not really connected with Watchtower.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead and ask. I'll see what I can do.
So, what, in your opinion, do you think that their sigil or their symbol, the Eye of Horus, some call it the Eye of Providence, the pyramid with the capstone, if that has any connection at all with any sort of, I guess what you call is UFOs or unidentified aerial phenomena that the military calls it. Some people have witnessed sort of triangle-shaped vehicles in the sky, and I know this is very unbelievable, but as I was doing some research, I came across a website called Orion Lines, and it sort of connects Freemasonry and the Satanic Council and these organizations. You mentioned the OTO, and there's all these organizations. I'm assuming they all track back to the Illuminati. Is that right? Like all these different satanic organizations, like Crowley's OTO and the Golden Dawn, and the Bohemian Grove, and all of these different sort of secret societies that sort of all trace to Freemasonry, which traces to the Illuminati. But there's a theory that it is connected to perhaps alien phenomena, maybe sightings in the sky, aerial phenomena, things like that. And I was wondering if you had an opinion if those things are connected at all.
Yes, I'll give you a story, an anecdote from my own life. So there was a teacher at Coos Bay. He taught electronics at the high school, and he happened to come upon, up in the hills, a flying saucer base. And he told me about it. He came in from one angle. He was coming from the coast to the east, and I tried to get into where it was going from the west, getting off of I-5, I-5, and then heading on these dirt roads. So I had a bunch of friends with me, so I had a whole load of people in my Dodge Caravan, and we start out on these are obscure roads. I mean, right. we were traveling on obscure dirt roads to try to get back to where this flying saucer base was. And whoever would live out there would be like, this is super remote. And we get way out there in the boonies, way up into the hill, and there is this high-ranking Freemason. He has his house there, and I knew he was a high-ranking Freemason because all his regalia and his bumper stickers and everything, you know. And so we went up there and talked to him because I was just so surprised that anyone would live out there, you know. So there, why would anyone live out there? He had retired from the Air Force. He had been like a lieutenant colonel or something and then retired from the Air Force. Why would anyone live clear out there? I mean, it's obvious that the man had money. He could have lived anywhere he wanted. Why would he be living out there? There was a free, and I'll tell you my opinion. He was watching that area. He was guarding that area. And that was his purpose, was to watch anybody that might come down the road to try to find that base. That's my estimation of it. So anyway, the bottom line is there's a connection between trauma-based mind control, Freemasonry, and the abductees of flying saucers.
Yes, I agree with you there. Now, on another subject, you already answered the question that I had about why Watchtower was being now all of a sudden the legal lawyers and are coming down on Watchtower, especially in Pennsylvania, where they are subpoenaing. I heard every Kingdom Hall for documents on child molestation. And they said that they were going to accept documents dating back to the early 80s. So these crimes have been committed long ago. They could have prosecuted these crimes long ago, and now they're prosecuting them. And you answered that question by informing us that the Illuminati is finished with Watchtower. They're done with them, and they're letting inertia take its course against them with all of these civil and criminal prosecutions. So I thank you for that. That's really important information. So I came across your research after I left Watchtower, as I was in the course of researching its history. You know, I found your research, and I really appreciated it because I had never heard of the Illuminati before. I never heard of Freemasonry except for just the real superficial, like they build things, I mean, just kind of what what they want the public to believe about them. And but I've never read any of your books, and I would like to start to read your books. And I was wondering if you could recommend a good starting point for somebody who's never read your books before.
I would recommend you start with Bloodlines of the Illuminati. The books on the mind control are pretty heavy duty. I went through and gave all kinds of details, and I mean, it's pretty heavy to see what they do to these children. You know, when I was helping the victims of mind control, sometimes I would just break down and start crying to realize what had been done to them. So yeah, start with the Bloodlines of the Illuminati.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Mr. Sringmeier. I appreciate everything you do, and taking my call. And I probably have more questions. I don't want to take up too much time for somebody else, but thank you so much for everything. Have a good night. All right, you're welcome. Bye. Bye.
Well, there you have it, Fritz. Funny people want to speak with you tonight, but I'll tell you what's really amazing to me is, what we do here on the Six Screens. I want to explain to our audience is, since our formation, 15, 16 years ago, it's very important that we allow everyone to have a voice. And I want to hear everything. When I left the Watchtower, I wanted to hear everything anybody had to say about it, whether it was satanic ritual abuse, whether it was conspiracy, whether it was false teachings scripturally, whatever it would be. I wanted to keep my antenna up. So that's why we allow these things. Other programs, no, we're not going to talk about that, this or that, but I want to talk about it here. I think it's fascinating. This is an organization that really has kept a lot of people in the dark. It's very hard to figure them out. They're very good at it. So that's why I connect with this esoteric secret society, bloodlines of the Illuminati, all of that. That makes sense to me. So we're on the trail of finding out who really is the Watchtower. So let's come on and let's say hello to Fritz. Hit *6. You must have some questions for Fritz. So why don't you come on and
Hi, Fritz.
Go ahead, you're on with us.
Hi, Fritz. I'm Jeremy. I first saw you like several years ago. It was on like the Prophecy Club. Around that time when I watched that, it was when I first heard about the Australian Royal Commission things, and I never really quite looked into all the apostasy stuff before that. But then after that, I really felt that they crossed the line, and I gave myself full permission to look into everything. And when I saw your program on the Prophecy Club of the Illuminati, where you were explaining about that, that was like one. I really didn't believe in Jesus before watching that program, and after watching that program, I really found like I truly was shown a way to find Jesus. And
praise, hallelujah, hallelujah!
I thought that program was just amazing, and I started looking up your name. I found a few programs on you, like with the Illuminati. But before a few weeks ago, when you first came on the 6 Rooms, I never knew you as that involved with the Watchtower that you actually attended the meetings. I always thought you just read their old books, but I think that's pretty amazing.
You know, my wife, I was instrumental in my wife coming to Christ because she watched that Prophecy Club show on video.
The one I watched with you?
Yes, it helped her come to Christ too. So that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that.
I just thought that was amazing, and it really fascinated me. I would love to buy some of your books in like hardcover if I could find them.
Yeah, they aren't in hardcover.
They are. Yeah.
They were only in hardcover for like a year or two. And
I found it. I can't read on a computer screen very well, like I can a book. Yeah, I mean, it's just so much different. I should be able to. Or I can read articles from a computer screen, but I can't read like a whole book. I need to just train myself to do that. But I would really love to have like the hard cover of like your Illuminati book and your Watchtower and the Masons. I'd love to share that like with my mother.
Well, they are spiral bound, which is actually better because they lay open. They're big books and they lay flat open the way they're bound. So
that'd be even better. Yeah.
Book is not going to work as well.
No, when they're real, but they're spiral. They won't wear out if they're spiraled. But yeah, I mean, I was raised in the Watchtower. I never got baptized growing up, and it was like a good chunk of my family is still in this religion, and they think I'm doomed to die at Armageddon. And I think they're finally right. Armageddon is really close with everything going on in the world, but they're going to get left behind just like all the rest of the world, I think.
So, yeah, I had someone who was like an older brother to me, and he was such a good person, a very wonderful, good person. And he had gone to different churches and tried Christianity out, and then he found the Watchtower Society. And so he's the one who nullified me being on guard, because I thought that if he found something good in the Watchtower Society, it must not be all so bad, because I was a Christian. And so at that point in time, I thought, well, they must be truth seekers that have just found the wrong answers. And since I don't believe in war, I'm a conscientious objector to war, and none of the churches in my area were against war, I was willing to attend the Kingdom Hall. I didn't have my guard up. You know, I knew that their doctrines were false, but I thought they were sincere. But then after I rubbed shoulders with these people, I found that a lot of them weren't sincere, especially the hierarchy. Some of the hierarchy were just downright evil. And yeah, and some of them weren't true. And some of the rank and file weren't truth seekers either. They were just under a low-grade mind control where they just regurgitated whatever the Watchtower Society told them. So, yeah, it was eye-opening, but that's how I had my guard down, was this person who was like an older brother, who was such a good person, had joined them.
Yeah. I really found a lot of a lot of things that your research that I've looked into. I find it to be so amazing. And ever since I saw your show, your episode on it, I see the Illuminati symbols in everything. All the TV shows I watch, the video games that I play, all the magazines I read, the billboards I look at. I see all those symbols everywhere. And it's like,
yeah, I even see them.
Everything I do, this is Illuminati. It seems like. If you go to Taco Bell, you see that all CNI. You drink a can of Monster. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm still here. Thanks.
Okay, your phone made a funny noise. But yeah, it's the reason that show opened my eyes so much is just because I see the Illuminati in every aspect of my life. Was just going to the grocery store, everything, watching like the symbol for CVS is like an all CNI. It's just it is everywhere. It's like
it's in our face. It's even more in our face than it was when I gave that prophecy clip talk.
Oh, I've been like watching every aspect of the world, and man, the rabbit hole is just so deep. It just blows my mind, and yeah, and I just thought it was really cool that we were able to call in and talk to you, because your show was really what brought me to Christ a few years ago when I saw
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I'm so happy to hear it.
And just to talk to you, and maybe I'd give you a little inspiration yourself. You've given me a lot of inspiration, and I think that's great. I've been looking for you a little bit here and there, and I was like, what happened to Fritz Sringmeier? And then when I saw you on here a few weeks ago, I was like, oh man, I missed it. I could have called in live, but I got to call in today. I was an hour late when the show already started, but I was like, I got to call in. But yeah, I better not take any more of your time, but I'm just glad I got to, say thank you for that show you did. And, and if you ever come out with your books in hardcover to where you can buy them, you should let Rick Farron know, so yeah, that's all it is. And I would love to get them and share them with a lot of my Jehovah's Witness family. I'm not being shunned because I've never baptized, so I'm kind of lucky. But yeah.
You are fortunate. I was never baptized either, and I did get shunned.
Yeah, that blew my mind when I heard you say that the other day. That I was like, wow. And
yeah,
when you said,
and other people, I'm not the only one that's experienced that.
I'm kind of soft shunned with my family. They're not hard shunned. They don't like call me up out of the blue, see how I'm doing or anything that's going on in my life. But if I call them, they will return my call.
Well, that's good. That's good.
But yeah. Well, just have a good day, and hope some other people get to talk to you.
Thank you.
On the show. Bye-bye.
Bye, Jeremy.
Well, there you go, Fritz. I mean, we got a lot of people still coming in here and wanting to talk to you. It's amazing. What really fascinates me more than anything is when people leave the Watchtower. I don't know if they were like me, but I wanted to search everything, Fritz. I wanted to know everything there was about what was going on behind the curtains. And that's what got me interested in the Illuminati. So I found that very, very helpful because I could really see the tricks the Watchtower is using and why they are doing it. So we have right now coming in, we have area code 312. You want to speak up? Say hello to Fritz. You're on with us.
I just have a question for the spot.
We gotta get you closer to your phone, sir. We gotta get you closer to your phone so we can hear you good. So
I'm going to go speakerphone. I
okay.
just wondered if Mr. Fritz had ever studied Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber.
Yes.
I just had a question because a couple books that I've read, and I think the Netflix movie about him, sort of inferred that he was okay. He went away to university, and there he volunteered for a study that they think involved brainwashing, mind altering, and that after that he was never the same. Ultimately, dropped out of uni, and wound up in the woods and started sending those bombs out. Any thoughts on that?
I don't know specifically his situation. He put out a protocol. He wrote a manifesto, which is surprisingly, pretty on track. But I would say this, because, I started publicly exposing all of this in 1990. The majority of people out there that are fighting the world order are actually controlled opposition. They're setting their own opposition up. They've got an agenda that way. And so it wouldn't surprise me if he was controlled opposition. But it's interesting to read his manifesto. And,
yes, it is.
It does give a picture of what's happening. And sad to say, associated with such a good manifesto is then the violence that is associated with Ted. So maybe that was their goal in directing them to do this, was to paint conspiracy people as dangerous.
Got it. Yeah, I just asked because you had mentioned earlier how universities and scientists were involved across the country were involved with the MK Ultra, and that just triggered a thought that I had about that. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for the question.
Well, you're on the 6 screens. We're looking forward to more people calling in. So if you got a question for Fritz Sringmeier, he's written a number of books. He talks all about the bloodlines of the Illuminati. Why don't you come on, say hello to Fritz. Go ahead, hit *6. We'll bring you on right now. I know he's very, many say he's controversial. Many want to know more about the Illuminati. Some are just hearing it for the first time. So let's get another question coming in. Go ahead, 978.
Oh, hi, Rick. You've been talking about this mind control, and it really concerns me because so many of these former Jehovah's Witnesses, some of them have really been damaged from this MK Ultra mind control. So were you aware of any research or any way to help a person heal from mind control? Is there any way that you can forewarn us and forearm us with this information?
So I spent quite a few years trying to help victims of this mind control. And if somebody wants, they can get my Deeper Insights book. And the whole second half of the Deeper Insights has healing modalities, has what the therapeutic issues are and how to deal with them, okay? It's pretty deep. Trying to help these people is not easy. It takes a lot of patience, but if a person perseveres, you can help them. I think that the first thing that I would want for any of these people that are survivors of trauma-based mind control is that they have a good, solid friend that will help them 24/7. That's what they really need, is someone who's a friend. And that friend will be as helpful, if not more helpful, than a therapist.
Okay, where would we get such a book? Because I saw some of your books on Amazon, and you cautioned against getting them there because you said they might not be, 100% you.
Yeah, you can email me, and they took my website down, so you can't order things through my website, but you could email me and tell me what you want, and then you can order it that way through the mail, the old-fashioned way.
Okay, could you give me your address?
Yes, my email address is springmeiermessages@hotmail.com. It's all lowercase. Sringmeier is spring as the season. Meyer is MEIER, and then messages@hotmail.com. And I think Rick is going to put that up too. I don't know.
I can always get in touch with Rick too. My other quick question is, you mentioned some organizations that former Jehovah's Witnesses need to be aware of, especially the religious ones to stay away from. You mentioned NABRIT and the Charismatics. Is there any other organizations you can think of to have people think twice about becoming a part of them?
Well, if you read my Be Wise as Serpents book, I go denomination by denomination and give their leaders who are Freemasons. So unfortunately, where the world's gotten to at this point is things are pretty corrupt. Christendom, the Jehovah's Witnesses were right that Christendom is corrupt, but the answer is Christ. So, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You're going to have to come to Christ, be led by the Holy Spirit, and find a good fellowship, right? So I don't have a membership right now in any church because my calling is to the body of Christ in general. And I'm not going to direct you to any denomination. I'm just going to say, I believe that if a person's sincere and they start looking, that Christ and the Holy Spirit will direct them somewhere eventually to where you will find some legitimate fellowship, okay?
Okay. Well, what's your opinion of house churches?
House churches?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good answer. That's really what we need. That's the way they did it in Acts. And, that's the way they do it in Red China. And we're going to face the same kind of persecution that's going on in Red China. So, yeah, house churches are great.
So you feel that in the very near future that religion's going to be attacked as a whole? Are there any other major things that you see happening in the recent future?
Well, I don't know if the Illuminati plans are going to actually come to fruition, but their plans are to use people that are under this trauma-based mind control to, after they take down the churches and most of these denominations have apostatized and fallen apart, the remaining true Christians they want to hunt down with and murdered by these trauma-based mind control people. So they want to totally eliminate Christianity.
So the Illuminati set up to basically get rid of Christianity.
Well, they're not set up just to do that. They're Satan's hierarchy. So Satan told certain bloodlines, hey, you serve me faithfully and I'll make you rich and famous and give you the world, and you can rule these world empires and blah, blah, blah. So this stuff goes back to Babylon. It goes back to ancient Egypt. It's, these like the Rothschilds, their secret genealogy books, take them all the way back to Nimrod.
Wow. It's amazing. Well, thank you for, you left me a lot of food for thought. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I got a question for you. Or I should say another one for you. What do you think about China and Russia's president getting together and wanting to create, and they're using the word a new world order, like, and obviously it's supposedly excluding America. But do you think that that's something separate, or do you think that that still ties in with the Illuminati?
This is all a dialectic. It's called Hegelian dialectic. Putin is an Illuminati member. He's a member of an Illuminati lodge. There's 36 of them around the world. Before anybody had heard about Putin when he was younger, he was a protege of Klaus Schwab, who's an Illuminati member. He went to Henry Kissinger's house, who's an Illuminati member. So, the people around Putin supported the World Economic Forum for years. It wasn't until their invasion of Ukraine that they quit actively participating with the World Economic Forum, which is an Illuminati front with Illuminati gold. So, this whole thing's Hegelian dialectics. Modern China was financed and created by the Illuminati, and they're the ones, and I've written some articles about how they went over there and they built China up, and so this whole thing is Hegelian dialectics. It's just they're pretending that they are fighting against the West and the evil West, the banksters. They're the ones, and I'm really surprised and saddened that a lot of awake Christians are being sucked into this dialectic, and they're going to be destroyed, because they need to wake up and realize this is just a controlled conflict. It's a stage. It's a scripted stage. Yeah, it's real people, but it's just a script.
Are you saying it's more of a distraction while this is going on and everybody's caught over here paying attention to this? Something else is going on in the background?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, yeah, they do hide a lot of things behind what people are watching, which is a magic trick. If you're a magician, and these people are magicians, over here on your right hand, you've got everybody's attention while your left hand is doing something. Yeah, they do a lot of that, and there might be some of that, but no, they created Hitler, and then Hitler said, I'm against the international bankers, I'm against Freemasonry, so, he's setting himself up like Putin now, as Putin's going to fight all of this, Well, no, it isn't. It's just a contrived conflict. And they still have one more world war for us. So, they've got to create it.
Right. See, about a year and a half ago, I just started having these, I don't know what you would call them. Weren't like visions, like, it was just a strong feeling I had that every day it seemed to get stronger and stronger, that there was going to be something happen with China and Russia, and they would come out of America, and it would actually be troops on the ground, whether it was here or there. And then within, I don't know, 6 months later, I just saw Iran and North Korea had something. They were just like they all became in cahoots together, I guess, or teamed up together. And that's something I have not been able to shake. It's gotten stronger and stronger for the last year and a half. And it's like I'll feel different things at different times, and then you see what's going on. And I don't know what to do with it half the time, other than just,
Well, Christ said, be of good courage. See, the Illuminati want to frighten us, just like the Watchtower Society. It seemed like so much of what they did was fear-based. Frighten you this way, frighten you that way. That's an Illuminati tactic. They want to frighten us. Fear is not from the Lord. Christ said, be of good courage. So the first thing you want to do is be of good courage, okay? Because if you can allow Satan to frighten you, or Satan's world order to frighten you, he'll chase you into a corner. So you've got to stand strong.
The Watchtower definitely did that. I can relate to that totally, because that's how they had us living our lives. Is basically, you were never good enough for Jehovah. You could pioneer, you could be doing this at the very last minute, screw up, and that would just happen to be when Armageddon's coming, and you just lost your life. I mean, what a
yeah.
It's just crazy how we had to live our lives. Yes.
Yeah. It's interesting that an Illuminati front, and the Illuminati is into creating fear, that it would use fear as its main tactic. Yeah.
Fear and guilt. I think fear and guilt.
Yeah, this is why it's good for me to break it down, what's behind the curtain, so people have some understanding of what happened to them.
Yeah, very true. I just want to thank you too for your show. It's kind of refreshing, to be honest with you, to hear these type of topics, because in reality, it kind of informs people. This isn't just we will just happen to be born a Jehovah's Witness, or we stumbled into the Watchtower and you went through this and you woke up because of this. A lot of times it's much deeper than that. And when you get into the Illuminati and to the Masons and all that, you start to get a deeper picture of exactly what's going on and why you were, if some woke up intuitively or just felt something was off, something's not right, I can't put my finger on it. It's when you do that deeper research, it gives you those answers. And I would encourage anybody, when you leave the Watchtower, regardless of how you left, why you left, do your homework still, because when you can walk away with a peace of mind and no longer have that JW hook in you, well, what if I'm wrong? What if Satan's putting doubts in my mind and it's really the truth? You're always going to have that lingering doubt until you prove to yourself that it's not the truth. You know what I'm saying? Do your homework so you get that peace of mind. That's what helped me.
Right. So you see, people might ask the question, well, Fritz, why are you saying all this stuff? Well, because it's going to make sense of things. For instance, you go to a Kingdom Hall and it doesn't have real windows. You can't see in the building. And you ask yourself, well, why did this come about? And why is it named a Kingdom Hall? Well, if you go into the Watchtower's history, you find out that originally they were meeting in Masonic halls for a long time. In fact, they continue in some places to meet in Masonic halls. And what are Masonic halls like? Well, they don't have real windows. So when the Watchtower Society built their own buildings, they're very similar to a Masonic hall. They're named Kingdom Halls, and they don't have windows. there's a continuity there.
Yeah.
Hello, Fritz.
Yes.
Recently, I watched I got on the audiobook on YouTube and watched Watchtower and the Masons. Very impressed with the research. On the subject of C.T. Russell being a Mason, I think you get of what I would call circumstantial evidence, very compelling, that he was probably a Mason, registered Mason. Bloodlines of the Illuminati, I could not find it on audiobook. But back to Russell for just a minute. On one of the Illuminati bloodlines, of course, Russell is one of the names. So I don't have enough information because the bloodlines of the Illuminati is not on the audiobooks. And so, with the Russell name, I assume you were able to pin down the fact, or a fact, that Russell, C.T. Russell, was in that bloodline. So you want to comment on that?
Well, earlier today, I did give you a very something that when I was researching that I thought was like hitting the mother lode. Do you remember? Were you listening? When I said that I had used 4 obscure sources, 1850 census, John Russell.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's one of my problems because I came in late on the program. Sorry about that.
Yeah, well, okay, you missed that. So the point is that there was this Frenchman. His name was Marquis de Lafayette, and he was a French aristocrat who was a high-ranking Freemason and Illuminati member. And he came over when he was 19 years of age to George Washington's army in the American Revolution, and he was given a major general. He was given the rank of major general, and he led American troops. And he became very famous in the American Revolution. He was very loved by the American people. And in 1824, he made a trip back to the United States. So picture this guy, he's coming back, he's a great hero, and he's coming back. Every woman in the United States is going to want to dance with him. He comes to Philadelphia, and who is chosen to dance with this guy? He's an Illuminati member, high-ranking Freemason, but somebody who's related to Charles Taze Russell. Now that's, to me, pretty telling. There's a lot of other women that would have loved to have been in that position.
Yeah, it is. It is telling.
This is not some obscure bloodline that had nothing to do with anything.
Right. Yeah, very good answer to the question. And as I mentioned a minute ago, in the Watchtower and the Masons, it was a lot of information about Russell being a Mason, but specifically the Russell name. I heard your answer a minute ago. It's very good. But I was just wondering that could you, or did you may have already did this, just pin down the fact that C.T. Russell, I don't know, was he related to Bertrand Russell in the same family, or the great what was he, a British philosopher?
Yeah, Bertrand Russell is rated by some people as the most evil man in history. I guess that might be debatable, but
but at any rate,
I haven't done the genealogy research to see how all these different Russells are related, but there's definitely a lot of Russells that were Illuminati members, and it's a very suspicious. Well, you may have missed last time I was on. Were you here when I came on March 26th?
Yes, I listened to that program.
And did you hear me talk about how these 4 women that were Illuminati members, they specifically told me that the Russell bloodline was an Illuminati bloodline?
I remember that.
Okay, so yeah, that was the confirmation that I really wanted.
Yeah, I'm satisfied. Not 100%, but yes, with all the research you've done about Russell being more likely being a Mason, that's very important. And him being in the Russell family bloodline. The bloodline's the key for me. If Russell was in that, if C.T. Russell was in that Russell bloodline, well, he probably was. He probably was. But
well, yeah, interrupting you, but one of the things that I brought out today is how bent out of shape these Freemasons would get just because they saw that I was writing something associating the Freemasons with the Watchtower Society. Now, Freemasonry, like I said, is associated with all kinds of religions, and there's Freemasons in so many different denominations. Why would they get so bent out of shape? To me, the only explanation that makes sense is they are aware that there's some kind of an agenda, a secret agenda there. They may not know.
Whoop, we lost Fritz there for some reason. I'm not sure why, but we'll see if we can't get Fritz back with us. Sometimes the telephone lines go out, but it's just amazing to have a man like Fritz on with us tonight. We really appreciate his presence. So let's see what happened. We're not sure why we had Fritz disappear. Well, the phone. Okay, friends, we're going to get the phone line back on. Hold on 1 second. Our phone lines go off every 6 hours. So hang in here with us. We're going to get back on here very shortly. Yeah, so it's amazing what's going on tonight. We have Fritz on with us, and we'll get him right back on with us, so don't go anywhere.
Please wait. Welcome into the live 6-screen.
Yeah, the phone lines go off every 6 hours here, so we'll get the phone lines back on. So don't go anywhere. Stay with us. We'll have Fritz back on with us.
Press *6 to mute yourself. Remember, when you are unmuted, your phone is a microphone and
it's amazing technology allows us to do all of this, calling people up on the phone, having them talk to us on our program. So let's just wait for him to come back on with us.
Press star now. Please enter your PIN followed by the pound or #.
So we'll just wait for Fritz to come right back on with us. So we're looking forward to that. So we'll be right back. Okay, we're going to just wait a couple of seconds here, and we'll be all set to go.
Purchase more storage from your account.
Books or different things, to me, I mean, wouldn't you think if a person was doubting whether Russell was ever a Freemason, wouldn't the tombstone kind of give that away?
You're making a good point. One thing that I've noticed is a lot of these Illuminati kingpins have to make a pilgrimage to Egypt, to the Great Pyramid, just like Charles Taze Russell did. And, John F. Kennedy, who was of the Kennedy Illuminati bloodline, he made a pilgrimage over there. And there's a lot of other people, too. Alice Bailey, who was in women's branch of Freemasonry and in the Illuminati, she had to go over there. So HPD. It's like a pilgrimage they all have to make. There's something significant there. And then also, he doesn't have just a pyramid. It's a pyramid with a capstone. So that's significant too, people.
I have another question.
Yes.
You mentioned just a bit ago that we need one more World War. Is there going to be a World War III?
yes, that I have been repeatedly informed both by people that have gotten out of the Illuminati as well as Illuminati kingpins themselves that we're going to have a third world war. And it's written up by Albert Pike, and he was the grand poobah of Freemasonry. And he wrote a letter, which is in the London Museum. And in that letter, he says, he outlines the 3 world wars. None of them had been created at that time. 2 of them have happened like he wrote, and the third one's yet to come. The third one's to be centered in the Middle East. And you'll notice that Israel is like this large thorn in the side of everything. They just agitate the whole Middle East. And so that was, and Charles Taze Russell had a big role in the creation of Israel. He went all around the world preaching Zionism and trying to get the Jews to move to Israel.
So that's what Zionism is getting people to move to Israel?
Zionism, when Zionism came about, and there was different forms of Zionism, its goal was to get Jews to move to Israel, or at that time it was called Palestine, the Holy Land, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, so this war that we have now in Ukraine could be resolved. It's not part of the Third World War.
I don't know if it will evolve into it, but typically the way the Illuminati have worked is they have created a precursor war before the major war. So like before the American Civil War, there was Bleeding Kansas, where there was a civil war in Kansas. Before World War II, there was the Spanish Civil War. So this could very well be a precursor war that might lead to something else, but I don't know that as a fact.
Okay, so what are some of the things we should be looking for that Albert Pike talked about?
Well, he says that the world will worship Lucifer in the end, and that's their goal. So, basically they're trying to genocide the world's population, and take it down to perhaps 500 million. So watch out. There's all these different ways that you can be genocided. And then they're also trying to dumb us down because they want an excuse to justify. They're going to turn people into cyborgs that are connected to their beast computers. And so their whole agenda, I mean, all around us, you see all these agendas going on. I don't know how to explain it in a few succinct words. You just see their agenda all around us. And, the best thing to do is to dig deep into Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, to walk in his way, to know what you think so that they can't mess with your thinking, and to become as independent as you can be. I mean, there's so many things where we're losing our independence. They want us to have smart washing machine. And, a smart washing machine, they can shut it down remotely from a distance, They want people to have smart cars, which can be remotely controlled too. So start thinking about being independent, your own person, and start waking up to all of their agendas.
You said they mess with your thinking. How would they mess with your thinking? Besides, like the advertising and the television shows, or something else?
All around us, they're trying to mess with our thinking. All around us. I mean, do you watch Hollywood movies?
No. Maybe older ones, but
do you play video games? I mean, just like how they're messing with the libraries. All of the universities are dumping millions of good books. The public libraries around this country are dumping millions of good books that are nonfiction books, and they're replacing it with stupid stuff like Buffy the Dragon. So that's just one way of so many that they're trying to control our thinking.
Okay, well, thank you for your succinct answers.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Hold on. Let me hold on 1 second. I'm going to call out the area code. We have a lot of people calling in, so I want to call out the area code, give some people new people a chance. Area code 203. You're on with us. Go ahead.
Thanks, Rick. This is Carrie on the suite. Look, I don't believe that we're going to have a third world war. It would be complete annihilation of everyone. And it was told a long time ago that God would step in before that would happen. And he's not going to let, whether it's Armageddon or whatever, that's just not going to happen. Something's going to stop it, and I believe it's our higher power. So I don't know what, I learned this as a Catholic, and I learned it as a JW. So what's going to happen?
Well, thanks for sharing your view. I was answering the question from what do the Illuminati have planned? And like you've heard me say several times tonight, I don't have a crystal ball. I wouldn't trust it if I did, but I can't tell you what other plans will succeed and what won't. But I can tell you I know what they have planned, and unless something like Almighty God, Yahuwah, unless he steps in, I don't use the witness's name for the Tetragrammaton. Yahusha, is a better way to say it. Unless Almighty God steps in, I don't see how their plans are not going to come forward.
Well, you know what? They can plan all they want to plan, but they're not in charge. In the end, it's our Creator, Jesus Christ, Holy Spirit, or whatever, God's army. They can plan and plot and do all this stuff. Nah, it's for nothing. It's just to screw with people's minds. That's all. But that's my opinion.
I had another question.
Is it still Carrie?
Let Fritz talk to Carrie here for a second. Go ahead, Fritz. Answer Carrie.
Was there another question there, Carrie?
No, I just I hear all the stuff about the Third World War, and it's just not going to happen. If you really believe in Scripture and you believe in the Bible, it's not going to happen. God's not going to let these people destroy this earth and everyone in it.
Carrie, what about that verse that says that if God doesn't come back, there won't be any flesh left, I mean, he makes it sound in the verse that he's got to come back, because if he doesn't, that's the end of everything. There will be no.
He will be back. He will be back. He will be back.
So
I have
you don't get a very good picture of the end time.
Well, I'm not looking forward to it anyway, so I'm not going to stress over this stuff. I live one day at a time. That's what I do, and I put my faith. I put my faith in God, Jesus is my savior, and I'm surrounded. So I don't worry about that stuff.
Yeah, I don't want you to worry about it. Right.
No, I'm not going to. I'm not going. And I appreciate everything you're saying. I'm just, I think we all have our opinions on all of this, but I'm really not into conspiracy theorists, or and I'm not being disrespectful. I really am not, but I think we have it. I think we have enough with the Watchtower and how they, made everything that made, they would tell us things that made sense. It made sense the way they did it. It was a slow process of brainwashing, and and they were just as much of a victim also, but that it starts with a Bible study. And now I just have a personal relationship with God and His Son, which I appreciate. And I am not into any religion or any walk or anything like that. It's just me, Him, and His Son. So that's all I care about.
Okay, well, the scriptures, you're making it sound like I'm going against scriptures, but if you read Psalm 2, it says all the kings of the earth conspire against God. That's conspiracy theory.
Oh, yeah. I agree. They can conspire all they want. They're human beings. I mean, we have a very powerful God. So, they can conspire all day long and plot and plan and do whatever. But God has His timetable, and that's it. We don't know when it is.
Well, thanks for sharing.
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Well, it's just my feelings, and I wanted to say that. So
it gets you upset. Somebody says that there could be a third world war. I understand.
Yeah. No. Okay. Well, you have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, we've got the area. Thank you, Carrie. We got area code 336. Area code 336.
That'd be me, Rick. Jimmy Bell.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Fritz, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. You finally got through, huh?
Yeah, well, this is the first time I call, and I've actually been carving up a ham for the last hour and a half. So that's a whole other story. I've been listening to everything. I'm really glad that you brought out the information about the Illuminati and the Freemasonry. I know that when I woke up from Watchtower, it was a subject I didn't want to touch because there was so much divisiveness in the community between for or against it. But after I woke up to more of the political stuff of things, I realized that, yes, there is a connection between Watchtower, Freemason, and the Illuminati. As a matter of fact, I do believe that Watchtower is just nothing other than propaganda arm of the deep state. So I agree with everything you said in that manner. Question I do have is, are you familiar with the phrase fifth generation warfare?
No, I don't think I am. You mean the latest type of weapons that are
not so much physical weapons.
Right, I understand. But they're weapons that are different, that we don't even realize are weapons.
Yeah, what I'm talking about, fifth generation warfare, you might want to look that up as a suggestion. The only reason I say that is because there's a lot of people out there right now that are scared. There's a lot of people scared with what they see going on in the world. There's a lot of people worried that there's going to be this shooting war, this World War III scenario, and it's got people living in fear. Well, how many times throughout the Bible does it say, do not fear? I think it's about 365 times. So I don't. This is this is really why I want to have a personal conversation with you, because I want to see where you're at on what kind of hope do we have for our future. And this is what I see. Fifth generation warfare is basically information war. It's an information war. And they know that those who control the information control the world. So a shooting war, I don't believe is going to happen, because I believe that we are already in World War III. It's not a shooting war, it's an information war. And we've been in this war for about 5 to 6 years now. But the deep state is going to push their agenda. They have an agenda. We all know that. And they're going to keep pushing. But there are forces that are battling them, and they're not succeeding. And the reason, and I can make an example of that. How long do you think that the deep state wanted to lock down people with COVID?
I think they got actually pretty close to what they wanted. Yeah, it was a beta test. I don't think it's the final. Oh, it's the final, and we're going to see some more similar things that are even worse.
Yeah, I mean they're already building that narrative that there is going to be another one of them pandemics. They're building the narrative that there's going to be a cyber attack. They're building the narrative that people are going to live in 15-minute cities. These are all their goals.
Right.
But the thing is, they're not succeeding. It may look like it because the mainstream media, which everybody listens to, unfortunately still, they're putting it out there and making it seem like they have a bigger voice than they actually do. This deep state Illuminati, folks, is a small percentage of the world population. And so why are we scared of them? Why are we bowing down to them? Why don't we speak up?
This is one reason why I wanted to do a program like this, is I would say a conservative estimate of the American population is 5% are under this trauma-based mind control. At least 5%. That's a lot of people.
Oh, I agree with that.
And that gives them a lot of leverage on what's going to happen, because unless people understand that they have this kind of a tool, people are going to be blindsided.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, from the research that I've done, I know that there's about 4 to 6% of the population that will never wake up. No matter what you show them, what you tell them, they will never wake up because of that mind-based, that mind control. They can't do it. And a lot of people that have woken up, you know, it's not some glorious thing. I mean, we sit back and look at everything like, oh my God, we've been lied to literally about everything. Everything.
Yeah.
And so if the thing is we cannot live in fear. We have to fight back. We have to do the research. We have to look at what's going on, and we have to give humanity hope that there is a better future. Now, yeah, I know that there's folks out there. What's that?
I say good for you. Hope is a key.
Yeah. And there are things that are changing worldwide. And there's so much going on. People don't really pay attention to all of it, but there's a lot of good things happening behind the scenes. Now, I will tell you, I do believe that there is going to be a scare event. Could it be that they're going to build up this shooting war, this thing with Ukraine? Are they going to build it up and make it look like it's going to happen? Yeah, probably so. But it's not going to happen. And that's how I feel about that. So I just don't want people to live in fear. I want you to have hope for your future, hope for your children. And so that's what I wanted to present to you this evening. I still want to talk to you sometime, though.
Okay.
So thank you so much. I'm glad you brought that information out tonight, because everybody does need to hear it, because you're right on with the Illuminati and the Freemason stuff. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we had 978 on there. I believe it was Dick Borgie. Dick, if you want to come back on, we'll get you back on. Go ahead, Dick. Dick, you're on with us. Go ahead. Say hello to Fritz.
Yeah, I'm here.
Go ahead. Yep.
Yeah. I just had a quick question. Is President Biden somehow locked into the Illuminati? Thank you.
Well, yeah. But, well, the answer is rather involved. One thing, and this is something hard for some people that, you know, to hear it the first time is just shocking to people, but they have clones, they have doubles, you know, they have duplicates. So when you see Biden, don't think that you're seeing the actual Biden. They've got duplicates of Putin too. You know, recently when he went to Ukraine, supposedly to Mariupol, you know, it was one of his doubles who has different ears than him. So this is all a stage, you know, and Biden is definitely controlled. The original Biden is definitely controlled through blackmail, you know, and he's just a front puppet for the people that are pulling his strings. And so it really doesn't matter whether he is Illuminati or not, because he's not really running things, and he's just carrying out the script that they want him to do. Does that make any sense?
Yes, it does. I've said that before. Yeah, thank you for confirming that with me. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, Fritz, I think that was an excellent question there that Dick asked. I mean, we look at, you know, I'm not going to get political here tonight because I know it raises a firestorm. But, you know, when we take a look at what's going on right now in our government, how can anybody say that this is sensible and it's reasonable?
Yeah.
I mean, you have to really see that somebody must be manipulating all of this. A lot of people are beginning to notice it. Some aren't, perhaps. But there are changes. In the last couple of years since Biden's been in office, there has been monumental changes in the way that Americans do business. We've seen, I mean, I could go on and on and on here tonight. I'm not going to do it because I know we have Biden people on here, so I don't want to berate the man. But I don't see where this administration has in any way helped the American populace. I mean, where should we start? Should we start at the border? Should we start there with all of these illegal immigrants coming in and just being allowed to just cross the border and bring drugs and human trafficking and all kinds of mayhem into America? I mean, that's one place to start, but I'm not even going to start there. I'm going to start with the supermarket. That's where I'm going to start. 2 years ago, we didn't have inflation like this. This is crazy. And I mean, everyone in this program listening tonight, they've got to agree with me. Prices have been going through the moon. You know, bacon used to be like, I could buy a beautiful pound of bacon for like $6. You know, now today it's $10. Eggs, you know, it used to be 89 cents a dozen, $3.99 a dozen. Check your butter. How about your butter? $2 a pound, $4 a pound. So, I mean, you can't just be oblivious to this, but that's just one thing. Go with gasoline. I mean, we could go on and on and on with this. So if you don't really say that Biden is part of this Illuminati, or if he's not being used by the Illuminati, who's he being used by? Because he certainly isn't being used by anyone that would want to bring good to America.
Yep.
Hey, Rick.
Yes, Daniel.
just agree with you. Driving truck, I've been doing for now 6 weeks. I've been anywhere from New Hampshire, Miami, Florida, to back to Michigan, been in Alabama. I've been all over the place. So, I have to stop and refuel and going to these places. Gas prices, they range from, I'm driving diesel, so they range from $3.49 the cheapest all the way up to $6, depending on which state I'm in. And then if I go try to find a grocery store trying to eat healthy while I'm driving truck, I go to a grocery store, and like you said, just looking at prices of stuff, when you see a package of bacon for $14, or you want to buy like a oven roasted chicken that's sitting there in the warmer, it's already made. Maybe one state is $5.99, and another state is $10.99, and you're like, oh my gosh! I get per diem, but my per diem doesn't change from state to state that I drive in. It's absolutely wild.
Well, Danny, you're seeing it. You're seeing it right up front and close. You can't deny it. We can't just put blinders on here and say, oh, everything's wonderful. Really, I went to pay my car insurance. That's up $200. We're seeing interest rates rising, credit card rates, housing. To buy a house, 2 years ago before Biden was in office, hey, my goodness, interest rates were so low, people could afford a house. Now, because of interest rates, say like on a $400,000 house, you're up $400 or $500 a month more because of interest rates. So I don't really see. I'm not being political here. I'm just being realistic. I do not see that the present administration has made life easier for American people. I don't see it. And if someone does see it, please let me know. I'll be glad to listen to you. So let's go. We got Fritz on for a couple more minutes here with us. I guess I don't know where Larry John Wayne is. We're waiting for him to come on. But anyways, in the meantime, if you got a question for Fritz, come on right now and let us know what you think. Do you think?
Hello, Fritz.
Go ahead. We got you, Kurt. Go ahead.
Okay, real quickly here. Pyramidology and Russell. You can correct me on this. It's been a long time. Pyramidology is considered a pseudoscience. It started back in the 1820s or 1830s. I don't remember. Two Britishmen, they were friends. One was a mathematician. They both examined the Great Pyramid. They wrote books about it, the spiritual nature of the pyramid specifically. Later on, 1870, somewhere in that area there, Joseph P. Seiss wrote The Gospel in the Stars. I think he wrote about the pyramid as well. So with Russell followed these people. They may have all been Masons. Yeah. One other statement here, and I'll be quiet. The sacred geometry in the occult is big. It's big in Masonry, particularly the pyramid, and in others the pyramid and the cube. But sacred geometry in general is a huge topic, and it's part of the occult. Of course, Jehovah God is the great mathematician, and that's where it all starts. But anyway, I wanted to make those statements about Russell and the pyramid. I don't know if I'm accurate or not. What's your comment on it? Thank you.
Yes, the pyramidology is linked to Freemasonry, and if you look at Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teachings of All Ages, he gets into pyramidology and explains how it's the secrets of it were revealed by Freemasons. So yeah, you're right there. And so that's just one more clue that Charles Taze Russell was paying attention to Freemasons.
Yes, thank you for the answer. Thank you.
Well, Fritz, I think we might have to bring the program to an end. My goodness gracious, it went by so fast. Can you believe you're on for 3 hours?
Oh, thank you so much for hosting this. I really have to admire you for hosting something like this. Rick, you're great, and thank you. I do want to say one thing before I leave is, I've been doing this for over 30 years, and it's time for other people to step in and pick up the baton from me. And so I would really like to not be out here working. Somebody else should be doing this. I've laid the groundwork, the foundation. So hopefully other people will come along and pick up where I want to leave off and continue the battle. And so thank you, Rick, for this opportunity.
Well, I believe it was good to have you on here. I know it's doing nothing but alerting people to what goes on. Now, I know a lot of people, they're not, they might not come to grips with it all. They might say, well, I don't believe all of this. But I think it's very important for us to realize that there's, we all have different opinions. And I know different people come on, express different thoughts. But it gives us a heads up to what's really going on. And I believe that it's good to be able to do that, Fritz. So is there any last word you'd like to speak up and tell the audience about tonight?
Well, I hope that this has helped the survivors of trauma-based mind control, and I hope that it's turning the tables on this horrific mind control that's hurt so many lives. And my heart goes out to all of the survivors out there, and that's all I would. That's how I would end it. And who else? And I guess that's how we end it.
All right, well, that's fine. Thank you very much for coming on and giving us tonight. We're going to end the program now. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Rich, I'll be in touch with you. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yep, bye-bye.